In this section of the second grade measuring length and time unit, students will measure the distance between points on a number line, and they will use rulers and yardsticks to measure length, distance, width, and height to the nearest whole unit. Students will also solve addition and subtraction problems involving customary measurements of length. Materials include color tiles, a measuring length number line, the color tile ruler template, the inch ruler template, color pencils or crayons, string, scissors, standard customary rulers, and yardsticks. Students will measure length using concrete objects on a number line prior to measuring with rulers or yardsticks. Students will use color tiles, which each have a length of 1 inch, to measure the distance between points on a number line. A common misconception when measuring distance on a number line is to count the tick marks rather than the space between the tick marks. In this activity, students will use color tiles to measure the distance. To determine the length between the circle and the heart, color tiles should be placed on the number line between the points. Next, the color tiles should be counted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 10 color tiles on the number line, so the length between the shapes is 10 inches. Color tiles can also be used to determine the length between the square and the triangle. Although the square is at a point other than 0, the distance can still be determined. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 color tiles between the square and the triangle on the number line. So the length between the shapes is 13 inches. In this lesson, students will create a ruler using color tiles, make a connection to a ruler with inches, and use these tools to measure objects. Students have been using color tiles as concrete models for inches. Students will use color tiles to create a ruler. Students should place 12 color tiles on the color tile ruler template using alternating colors. Next, students should shade every other unit a different color. This will allow students to visually see where one unit ends and another begins. Finally, students should label the units at the end of each color tile. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. After creating the color tile ruler, students should practice measuring the length, width, and height of relatively short objects or images. The width of this monster is 1, 2, 3, 4 color tiles. Students will also be introduced to an inch ruler. This ruler has 12 inches labeled but does not have any of the tick marks between the whole inch units that are found on standard rulers. Students should measure the length, width, and height of the same objects or images they measured before. Using the inch ruler, again, the monster has a width of about 4 inches. Students should come to the conclusion that while the color tiles may have been one tool used to measure objects, the inch ruler is even more efficient measuring tool because it is easier to manipulate an inch ruler rather than a collection of color tiles when measuring. Students were previously introduced to an inch ruler labeled with only inch units. In this lesson, students will measure using a standard ruler. Students should notice similarities between a standard ruler and the inch ruler that they used in a previous lesson. Both have 12 inches, both have a total length of 1 foot, both can be used to measure length, width, and height, both have tick marks. Students should also notice some differences, including all of the tick marks on the inch ruler are labeled. There are additional tick marks on a standard ruler between the labeled inch units. The 0 is labeled on the inch ruler, but the 0 may not be labeled on the standard ruler. Students are expected to measure to the nearest whole inch. For example, this pen has a length of about 6 inches because the end of the pen falls more than halfway past the 5-inch tick mark. In addition to measuring the length, width, or height of objects, students should also have experience measuring line segments and combining the lengths to determine a total. Here's an example. This mouse ran in 3 line segments. This line segment is about 2 inches. This line segment is 3 inches. This line segment is 2 inches. We can combine the length of each segment to determine the total distance the mouse ran. 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 2 more is 7 inches. Students can also measure curves by using a string along a curve and then measuring the length of the string. Here's an example. We can use the string to follow the curved path the mouse ran. The string's a little bit longer than the path, so we're going to cut it at the end of the path. Then the standard ruler can be used to measure the length of the string. The length of the string is about 10 inches. Students are also expected to measure with yardsticks. An optional yardstick template has been provided. This may be useful for students who struggle with the extra tick marks that are present on standard rulers and yardsticks. Students should recognize that a yard is longer than a foot. This can be modeled by showing the relationship between 3 feet and 1 yard. Students should have the opportunity to measure lengths or distances using yardsticks. The same yardstick can be used repeatedly to measure 1-yard segments, and then the number of segments can be combined, or more than 1 yardstick can be aligned end to end to measure the distance. Students should measure to the nearest yard. One misconception students make when using a measuring tool is counting the tick marks rather than counting the units between the tick marks. Broken rulers are a way to determine if students really understand how to correctly use the tools. In this example, the ends of the measuring tool are missing, and the measuring tool begins with a tick mark labeled with a 2 rather than a 0. Although the broken inch ruler does not start at 0, the distance between each labeled unit is 1 inch. When measuring with a broken ruler, students can count the spaces between the tick marks to determine the length of an object. This pink paper has a length of 1, 2, 3, 4 inches. Students can also relabel the broken ruler to start with 0 at the first tick mark. Here's an example. So I've relabeled the first tick mark as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And when I measure with this relabeled broken ruler, again, I can still see 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces, and it measures 4 inches in length. Students will also solve addition or subtraction problems involving customary measurements of length. In this example, students will need to determine the length of 2 leaves and then will compare the lengths. Rob and Luis arrived at the playground. They each found a leaf and decided to measure the leaves with a ruler. Here's Rob's leaf. I can see that the ruler starts at 0 and the leaf's between 3 and 4 inches. It's more than halfway past the middle, so it's about 4 inches long. Here's Luis's leaf. This leaf does not start at 0 on the ruler, so I need to count the spaces between the marked tick marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Luis's leaf is about 6 inches long. To figure out about how many inches longer is the length of Luis's leaf than Rob's leaf, we need to make a comparison. 6 inches was our larger quantity compared to the smaller quantity of 4 inches. That equals about 2 inches. Luisa's leaf is about 2 inches longer than Rob's.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Elementary Math Minute. We hope you'll find these videos helpful, and we look forward to you joining us next time. See you then.